So, what if I told you there's a set of invisible rules that are quietly shaping your entire financial future? Yeah, these are the principles that separate, lasting wealth from a life that just looks successful on the outside. Today, we're going to make those invisible rules visible.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a question that really gets to the heart of it all. How is it that two people with the exact same income, maybe even living in the same city, can end up in completely different financial worlds 10 years down the road, right? One is stable, they're resilient, and the other's always kind of fragile, living close to the edge. I'll tell you what, it's not about luck. It's about a set of rules most of us were just never taught.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll uncover the real reason we all struggle with money. Then we'll get into the mindset shift you absolutely need to build wealth. After that, we'll dig into 3 super powerful, actionable rules: the uninterrupted engine, why you have to own, not owe, and how to create your own financial blueprint. And we'll wrap it all up by rethinking wealth not as a performance, but as architecture.
All right, let's jump into our first section, the real reason we struggle. And the answer, you might be surprised to hear, isn't in your bank statement or on your paycheck. Nope, it's much closer to home. We're talking about the invisible enemy that's operating inside our own heads.
Here's the most important point, right up front. The biggest thing holding you back from building wealth isn't your salary. It's your psychology. It's all these biases and mental shortcuts that are hardwired into our brains that make us, make decisions that feel good now, but quietly sabotage our future. We blame the economy, our jobs, our bills, but the real fight, it's happening right between our own ears.
Now check this out. This slide shows a really fascinating and powerful human bias. So research from the Federal Reserve highlighted the super simple experiment. When people are asked to pick a snack for next week, a whopping 74%, that's our rational, future-thinking selves, chose the healthy fruit. But when they were asked to pick a snack for today, 70% grabbed the chocolate. This is something called present bias. We just tend to overvalue immediate rewards at the expense of our long-term goals. We know what's good for us later, but we want what feels good right now.
And this chart just brilliantly shows the real-world cost of that exact bias. Because this isn't just about snacks, right? That desire for instant gratification, it translates directly to our money. I mean, look at this data. People who are identified as present biased carry an average of $1,565 in revolving credit card debt. And those who aren't, just $776. That's more than double the debt, all driven by the same mental impulse that picks chocolate over fruit. It's the same wiring, just with way, way higher stakes.
This brings us to that famous marshmallow test. You've probably heard of it. Kids were offered 1 marshmallow right away, or 2 if they could just wait 15 minutes. And what the researchers found years later was that the kids who could wait generally had better life outcomes. It's like author Brian Tracy says here, delaying gratification isn't just some nice skill to have, it is the indispensable prerequisite for success. It's the mental muscle we have to build to fight our own psychology. So we've kind of diagnosed the problem. So let's talk about the solution, the mindset of wealth. I want you to think of this as upgrading your personal financial operating system. Your current OS, it might be running old, buggy software, like that present bias, that just keeps causing crashes. It's time for an update.
So the first part of this upgrade comes from the work of psychologist Carol Dweck. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe your talents and intelligence are just set in stone. You avoid challenges because you're afraid of looking dumb. You make a bad investment and you think, well, I'm just bad with money. But with a growth mindset, you get that abilities can be developed through effort. You actually embrace challenges because you know they make you smarter. A bad investment becomes a question. Okay, what can I learn from this? This shift is everything, because if you don't believe you can grow, you never will.
And the second part of the upgrade is moving from a scarcity to an abundance mindset. As Deb Yu puts it, a scarcity mindset sees the world like a zero-sum game, like a pie with a fixed number of slices. You're always focused on guarding the little you have, and you see limitations everywhere. An abundance mindset, though, it sees a world of possibility. It's all about creating more, about growing the pie for everyone. It's about shifting your focus from just protection to creation, from hoarding to generating.
Okay, with our mindset officially upgraded, let's get into the mechanics. Rule number 1 is all about building the uninterrupted engine. This is where we tap into the most powerful and honestly the most misunderstood force in all of finance.
The legendary investor Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner, he said it best. The first rule of compounding, never interrupt it unnecessarily. So compounding, it's the process where your investments earn returns and then those returns start earning their own returns. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts off small, but as it rolls, it picks up more and more snow, getting bigger and faster at an exponential rate. Its real magic, though, only works if you just let it run.
So how do you keep that engine running? Well, it starts with a really simple habit that Warren Buffett talks about all the time. See, most people get paid, they spend their money, and then they try to save whatever's left over. The wealthy, they do the exact opposite. They save first, and then they spend what's left. This is the pay yourself first principle. It totally reframes saving from an afterthought to a priority. And the easiest way to do this is to automate it. Just set up automatic transfers to your investment accounts for the day you get paid. This takes willpower completely out of the equation, and it beats that present bias. Then comes the hardest and most important step. Let it grow. Don't touch it. Don't interrupt it.
And this is what happens when you let that engine run. If you invested $100,000 and just let it grow at an average annual return of 7%, after 30 years, and get this, without adding a single extra dollar, it would become over $761,000. And the craziest part is that most of that growth happens in the later years. That is the power of uninterrupted compounding. It's not about being a genius investor, it's about being a patient one.
This leads us straight into our second rule, and this is a concept that fundamentally redefines the language of money. Own, don't owe. If you really want to be fluent in finance, this is the core grammar. It's about understanding what actually makes you wealthier versus what just makes you look wealthier.
In his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki gives these just brilliantly simple definitions. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. It's literally that simple. The middle class often spends a lifetime acquiring liabilities that they think are assets, like a fancy car or even their primary home, which is constantly taking money out from mortgages, taxes, and repairs. The wealthy, on the other hand, focus all their energy on acquiring true, income-producing assets.
So the crucial point is this. The wealthy follow a very clear sequence. They buy assets first, things like stocks, businesses, real estate that generates rent. Then they use the income that's generated by those assets to buy their luxuries. You see, it's not about depriving yourself. It's about building the machine that pays for things first. They keep their personal expenses low, and they avoid high-interest consumer debt like the plague. They just fundamentally get the difference between spending money on things that soothe them today and acquiring assets that will stay and build their wealth for tomorrow.
And now for our third and final rule. We've covered the psychology and the high-level strategy. This is the tactical plan, the nitty-gritty for managing your money day to day. A mindset is an intention, sure, but a blueprint turns that intention into action. This is your financial blueprint, a simple system to give you control.
One of the most effective systems out there is the 50-30-20 rule. It's so straightforward. You just allocate 50% of your after-tax income to your needs, 30% to your wants, and a crucial 20% to your savings and financial goals. Now, this isn't about restriction. It's about being intentional. A budget isn't some financial diet of deprivation. It's a spending plan that gives you permission to spend guilt-free on the things you truly value, while making sure your future is secure. So let's quickly break this down. Needs are the absolute essentials: your rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries. Wants are pretty much everything else you spend money on by choice, from hobbies and streaming services to vacations. And finally, that 20% for savings, that is where the magic happens. This is the fuel for everything we've talked about. This is the money that pays down liabilities, buys assets, and feeds your compounding engine. There was a Fidelity survey that found that over 80% of self-made millionaires save at least 20% of their income. That's not a coincidence. That's the blueprint in action.
Which brings us to our final section, where we're going to tie all of these ideas together. Let's start to reframe our goal as wealth as architecture, a method for building a stronger, more resilient future. You know, an architect doesn't just design a pretty building. They design it to withstand storms and stand for a century. They always build the foundation first.
And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. Real wealth isn't about a flashy lifestyle or expensive stuff. It's not about impressing other people. It's about building a financial life that is resilient, a structure that can withstand shocks, a job loss, a medical emergency, a market downturn, without just collapsing. Being difficult to break means having the freedom to make choices based on your passions, not out of fear. It's that quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are secure.
And so we end on this final transformative idea. For way too long, we've been taught to treat money as a performance, a way to signal success and prove our worth. But that whole approach just creates fragility. The real shift happens when you stop performing and you start building. When you stop treating money like a show and start treating it like architecture. That's not just a rule for wealth, that's a blueprint for freedom.